Good. I'll call the meeting to order. Brenda, will you take roll?
Sure. Board Member Boriski,
Present.
Board Member Mercier. Board Member Mercier, sorry.
Present.
Board Member Ridley,
Present.
Board Member Roth,
I'm present.
Board Member Freeman. Council Member Anderson,
Present.
Council Member Woodward,
Present.
Mayor Sierra,
Present.
Vice Chair Hubernick,
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present. All right, thank you. I'll start with the approval of minutes from the meeting on December 13th. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move minutes.
All right, was there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any questions, edits, changes? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Brenda, do we have anyone for the public forum tonight?
We did not receive any emails, but we do have someone in the attendee. I'm trying to allow them to talk. Phil R., are you able to join us? There you go. This is the time for public comment, so if you are able to unmute yourself, if you have a public comment, please go ahead. Trying to ask him to unmute here online. Give me a second. Phil, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Are you wanting to make a public comment today?
Not today. I'm just listening to see what's going on in an area that I used to work in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Well, all right, very good. Thank you. All right. So moving on to 5A, the water efficiency plan. I'm turning it over to Sarah Stone, I believe.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I will share my screen. So Peter and I are going to share this presentation. I'll go through the first few slides and then have him over. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this item tonight for consideration is the updated water efficiency plan. So as a reminder, utilities is required to have a state approved water efficiency plan per Colorado revised statute on the slide there. Our last update to this plan was done in 2013. So this was overdue for an update as they are to be updated every 7 years. Utilities received a grant from Colorado Water Conservation Board of $20,000 to update this plan in 2022. And we presented our initial findings to the board back in September. At that time, we also opened the plan up and put it on our website for public comment and review. While we were gathering public comments, we also sent the plan to the Colorado Water Conservation Board for their review and feedback, as they're the approving body of the plan at the state level. So based on the feedback from CWCB, the public comments we collected from city staff and other stakeholders, we did make some changes to the final water efficiency plan. Those additions included low water landscaping, educational opportunities, and proposed updates to our utilities website for additional education, evaluation of water smart landscaping or appliance and plumbing retrofit incentives, as well as changes to the rate structure to promote water efficiency as a part of our next water rate study. The CWCB let us know that Englewood is one of the last, if not the last utility in the metro area that has a declining block structure for its rates. So our rates actually go down the more water that is used by a customer. So in our next rate study, which we will likely do in 2023, we look at an inclining block rate structure where our water rates would go up as more water is used. So our target in the water efficiency plan is to reduce the per capita water demand by 6%. And that's over a 7-year implementation period. And to do that, we've identified 30 water efficiency measures. Some are already in place, or some will be implemented over the 7-year period to reach this goal. There's 30 measures that fall into 5 main categories, which are meter and billing, water loss control, staffing and planning, technical improvements and incentives, rules and ordinances, and customer education. So I will turn it over to Peter to talk about the budget over time for implementing some of the new programs.
Yeah, so what this all means is it looks like there's a lot of cost here. However, we have 2 numbers that we're presenting. One is 37 million and one is 974,000. So the 37 million is in the majority of that is projects that we're already doing. And so as doing those projects, we've found out that we can take credit from a water conservation perspective by making these improvements. And those, so replacing leaking lines and making some improvements, several improvements to our system, especially around meters and meter efficiency and potentially AMI in the future. All of those projects are things we were going to do anyways as part of the master plan. And so we're able to receive credit, for lack of a better term, for from a water efficiency perspective by making those investments. So we're going to make sure that we account for that. As it relates to the new water efficiency programs and projects, we've got that's the $974,000. And so we have the next slide will go through what those projects actually, how they break down, because that again isn't $974,000 of brand new work. It's things that we are doing or we can utilize existing staff for. So generally the breakdown is between the water fund and the general fund. And then ultimately with any of this, we would be looking at grants wherever we possibly could to help support this. So if you look at this table, this is the projects that are new as a result of the water efficiency plan. And they break down into generally 3 different categories. And you can see that summary off to the right there. And so what the existing internal resources are, well, actually, I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go to the new building improvements. I'll go to the second bullet first. And so that's essentially line number 3 here, which is looking at doing a survey of all of the city facilities, whether the rec facilities, the civic center, the service center, all these facilities, and incorporating low water use fixture appliances and making those kinds of upgrades. That's something that's already underway for the city as it relates to just upgrading our facilities. To incorporate this aspect of it, there's an incremental increase to the cost of each facility. And we estimate that the total of that across all facilities across the city is generally around $500,000. It's all subject to whether funding is available to actually make those improvements. And so we see the split between that is generally 80% general fund because of the general fund facilities, and then 20% water fund. So that's one of the biggest components of this is when we upgrade fixtures, putting in new water efficient fixtures and appliances. The second group is new programs. And so new programs, these are new programs that came out of this a plan that are things that we need to fund that weren't originally anticipated to be funded. And so that is actually line 2, which is the water reuse feasibility study. Line 5, garden in a box and turf replacement rebates, which we have talked about. And then line 6, which is become a water sense, live it like you love it partner and promotional materials. And so you can see the total of those are 80,000, 37,750, and 7,000. And so that total is about 124,750 dollars. So that's new programs that come out of this water efficiency plan. Now the 37,750 is actually estimated right now at a 2-year cost. And so if that continues, if turf replacement continues through the full 7-year cycle, that cost would go up. But the remaining numbers in this table are over a 7-year period, which is that 7-year implementation period of the plan. The last amount is essentially everything else. So all the other line items, which are, line 1, line 4, and then everything from line 7 down, those are all programs and changes that we can incorporate into current staff work. And so there's a cost associated with it over a 7-year period, but it's really about incorporating that into existing staff's workload as projects that they execute. So it's not like we're hiring new people. We're not adding costs to the bottom line. It's where we're incorporating this into their workload, which means there might be some other things that push out farther. But when you look at these generally over, when you look at the summary of these, a lot of these things are things that we would do normally anyways. And really are things that they don't necessarily add a lot of workload. It's just, it could be as much about changing the way we do our work. And so ultimately, that's how that 974,000 breaks down as it relates to what the plan over the next 7 years has identified for costs to the cities. So it gives you some contextual understanding that it's not $1 million of we need to figure out how to fund it. It's really a small amount of additional funding per year, largely in the water fund, which we can incorporate into our financial plans and make work. And so I think that's the end of our presentation. So we'll open it up to any questions from the board.
Ty, go ahead.
Was this done through a consulting firm, Peter?
Yeah, we worked with Martin & Wood. They are and actually we have one of our Martin & Wood representatives on, as well as I meant to highlight, Stephanie Ellis is the internal project manager for utilities who ran this project. And so Stephanie's on as well. But yes, we utilize Martin & Wood. That's where we use the $20,000 grant to help pay for them to look at all this and prepare this plan.
And then just a follow-up is knowing how long this looks out, was AMI integration included into aspects of this?
That's in that 37 million number. So the AMI is, we anticipate AMI to be something that everything we're doing from a meters perspective strategy is building towards AMI. The likelihood of us would love to get AMI in place in the next 5 years, but I think that's an aggressive schedule. But it is in our planning.
Thank you.
Peter, remind us what AMI is.
It's advanced meter infrastructure, which is essentially, it's no longer people even driving down the road with a handheld that radio reads from the street. It's essentially a satellite, a cell tower based type of read where with the push of one button, you can read the entire city. The other great thing about AMI is the customer can get much more real-time data as it relates to their water use, and it helps indicate to people whether they have a leak, if they want to pay attention to how much they're using and they want to try and drive down their usage or things like that. That's why it's got a really strong connection to conservation, because it helps people really understand their water use.
Cool, thank you. Marjan and then Jim.
Hi, Peter. I just was wondering, this 7-year term of satisfying these conditions, this is set by the water. Who is this set with?
It's a Colorado Water Conservation Board is who reviews this, who reviews these plans, and ultimately we're required by state law to complete this plan every 7 years.
Is it, and I know you guys did a survey with what are the people's expectation was with water health. How can we get hold of that?
Do you mean the customer survey?
Yes, Sarah was speaking about that they had the customer survey, and how does that determine like how many, what was the percentage of the people you guys got? And then I see that you were saying that the approach to this is that you guys were, if people using more, they were getting incentives, but now it's going to change. I like to also understand what is the switch of that. Is that supply and demand that caused you, or is this some sort of regulation that you have to follow? I also like to know what percentage of the people responded to that survey, and how did you guys come up with the result of that survey?
So the customer survey is something that we did earlier this past year, or we did it early in 2022. I think the results came out in April, or I think survey closed in March, and we had results by May. I think percentage of respondents, what was it, about 10%, Sarah?
Yeah, that 10% sounds right. So I also, I want to clarify your question, Marjan, on the survey. Are you talking about the people that responded to this plan or to our customer survey that was sent out last year?
Not last year, the one that just was this year, actually. I noticed that when I was researching with the water health, and I just noticed that there was and I can't remember exactly what month it was, but I made sure I'll follow through that and then respond to that. But I just was very curious as like how many percentage of people are responding with that, and how does that affect your decision making? Is this decision making coming from the customer usage, or is this coming from the regulation?
So I think there's a couple things that I think I can clear up here. So for the water efficiency plan, which is the plan we're talking about now, we put that out to public notice, and we received public comment. That public comment it came from members of the community. It also came from Colorado Water Conservation Board who reviews it. All of the items that they presented were things that were made sense from a modern water utility perspective to incorporate into a water conservation plan, given the goals of water conservation around the Front Range. So I think that's one piece of it. The second piece that I think you're asking about is the declining block rate structure to an inclining block rate structure. So that is actually something that we'll be evaluating this year. That is more of a industry standard as it relates to how organizations charge for water to account for the fact that higher water users have a higher impact and demand on system need. And so as a user is using more water, we have to build a bigger system to accommodate that. Inclining rate structure is something that, and that's what Sarah mentioned, is something that, like CWCB said, is not something that they think that we're the last ones to have a declining rate structure. Frankly, when I got here, I was shocked when I saw it was a declining rate structure, because I didn't realize that anybody had it. And really, it's got a connection to water conservation in some respects, but it's also got a tie back to the cost of the system that has to be built in order to supply a higher water user.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Jim?
How do we does the board has access to those feedbacks?
Okay, so the survey,
Same
I'm
day?
sorry, I didn't close the last piece of this. So the survey is something that we did present to the board, I think last spring. We can talk to, Sarah can work with you and get the the comments on that, and that'll give you what the feedback was. One of the comments from last year around the survey was to potentially do it a little bit later in the year, more towards the summer when people are really using the summer and using the water. And frankly, when we potentially sometimes have the issues with water, so maybe we can get a real sense of how customers feel when maybe we're having some of the summertime issues with our water. So we'll probably likely be issuing that survey a little bit later this year. We're going to modify some of the questions because we think we can get some better data the second year around. So, but we want to be able to build trends. Sarah can work with you to get you that data because that is something that's available.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you, Peter.
Jim, and then Joe.
Turf replacement. Now, would that be, I mean, I understand if they replaced it with boxes and garden boxes, that sort of thing. How about other types of more efficient type of turf? Let's say from Kentucky blue to buffalo grass.
So I think it depends. And so a turf replacement is you're pulling out the turf and you're replacing it with something that's more of a xeric based landscaping. I don't know that you can necessarily pull out the turf and then replant a whole different type of low water use turf. I mean, personally in my house, I use what's called RTF, is a rhizomatic tall fescue. It's a more drought tolerant turf. And I put that intentionally because it does use lower water use. But I don't think that that's something that you get that credit for when you pull the turf out. Pulling turf replacement programs generally are, you pull the turf out and you put in some kind of a xeric low water use landscaping.
Okay, thank you on that. And my other question was on the $974,000 number, is there a payback figured into that? How many years or anything like that? A recovery number?
There's not really a payback. That's just a cost over a 7-year period. That's an estimated cost over a 7-year period. And like I said, the way I broke down those costs is they aren't new costs. They're just quantifying the investment of both staff and resources of the city to achieve the goals of the plan. Some of which are already existing staff and priorities, some of which are new things that as a result of the plan make sense to study that weren't originally factored in. But when you look at that, that's that 124,000 number. So over 7 years, we estimate the real new cost being 124,000 of things that were driven out of the water efficiency plan. The 500,000 is if we're gonna upgrade the fixtures in a building to upgrade them with low water use as opposed to normal water use fixtures. So that's already, all those other costs are somehow incorporated into just the normal modernization of a city and a utility.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to just understand, if we're spending that type of money, there must be some sort of lower usage of water.
Yep.
With all things being equal or whatever. And I'm curious as to how we look at that. I mean,
yeah, I think I was focused on money. As it relates to a return on investment from a water usage percentage, that was the first slide in the slide deck. If you see that slide, what it does is can you pull that slide back up? Because what it shows is if we stay on our current trajectory and we don't implement any of these programs to try to conserve water, we continue to have an upward trend in terms of annual acre feet per year needed to supply the city. If we incorporate these, you can see that drops from 6,481 acre feet down to 6,093. So really that's 370, or was it 388,000. So it's 388 acre feet is the benefit in terms of the conservation on an annual basis that we would see by the seventh year of this plan. And so frankly, that's like going out and finding new water. Instead of going and finding new water to meet our demands, if we can lessen our demands, then we actually have more available water to supply the city as a whole.
All right, thank you.
Joe?
Thanks. Yeah, Peter, my question is regarding the declining rate structure that we currently have. If I remember right, the number of gallons per month was quite high, like that where you got the rate drop. And if I thought it was probably above what a residential customer would use. I'm just curious how this would impact residential customers, or is the increasing rate structure targeted more at large, commercial or industrial water users? The reason I'm asking is we had this, when we were reviewing this plan with the Sustainability Commission, they had a similar concern. They had wanted to see the rate structure change, but one of the pushbacks on that was regarding, if you have a large residential household, if you have 7 people, for example, living in one home, that usually results in a higher water use. Would those larger household sizes get punished if we went to an increasing rate structure?
So the details of that will come as we evaluate this. And so I've done this with some other utilities in the past, and they've been part of it. I didn't do it. It's been part of this process before. And essentially what we do is we propose some different tier of increasing block rates. It doesn't necessarily have to be 2 blocks. It could be multiple blocks. And what you typically try to do is you try to have your first block be a typical indoor use for a typical home. And that's a block. And then the next block is an indoor home and plus one with irrigation. So then the next block is trying to target the irrigation component. And then the block over that is anything in excess of those typical scenarios. So what we do is we try to find what's the right break point of those blocks. And then what you do is you do a sensitivity analysis and you actually run existing user data through it to see what the effect would be on their bills. Because really this is the kind of thing that if it's a high water use industry or a high water use organization, they're the ones that actually see the majority of the effect from this kind of change. And so when I've done this in the past before, been in organizations done this in the past before, what we did is we found the 10 or 15 highest water users, and then ran through the existing model, the existing rate structure, their bill, and then the new rate structure to show what the difference in their bill was. And in that instance, we met with them individually in advance of any of these changes to help give them time to prepare. A lot of times you'll see these would be in the communities that I worked in before, there were community open space areas that were irrigated, large irrigated areas. In Aurora, we ran into this with, there was some high water use around water bottling, things like that. I know Englewood in the past had a I think it was a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi distribution center here that was like actually producing. And so if you've got something that's a high water user like that, what we'll do is we'll identify them and then understand what the effects on them are. So that comes with the process.
Okay, yeah, I'm just that's something I'll be keeping an eye on, because I'm not really, if we're targeting super large irrigation areas and that kind of thing, I think that makes sense. It's the kind of unintended consequences where mainly large household sizes or low income folks that have large households that end up falling into a larger water use bracket just because of the number of people in the household. Perhaps even their per person water use is lower than other households, but they get trapped into a scenario where, since they're all on 1 meter, they get hit with a higher rate. So that's the one piece I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and that's where we can set that tier based on that tolerance, such to mitigate what you're identifying there, because that's not the goal here. The goal is really to target irrigation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ty, did you have another one, or is your hand just left over?
No, I still have a question.
Go for it.
Peter, you mentioned the 388 acre feet of savings over the 7 years. What's the cost per acre foot that the city uses to benchmark when we had some conversations about ROI? So what's a rough number to buy an acre foot right now in the metro area?
Oh, good question. I think the most current numbers that I've heard are CBT water, so Colorado Big Thompson, and I think it's upwards of $50,000 an acre foot to purchase the water right. So that's to secure the water right. So if you took 388 times 50,000, I'd have to do quick math on that, but it sounds like a lot of money. So, but I think that's the number I've heard generally is about 50,000 an acre foot.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was above. I think CBT might be closer to 75 in some cases now.
See, this is why I shouldn't estimate this, because I am not an appraiser and I don't know these numbers. So it could very well be 75,000. And given the pressure on this, my number could be, my number is probably 5 years old, because it could very well be 75,000. So if you take 75,000 times 388, it quickly approaches tens of millions of dollars.
Thanks. I feel like that's a good comparison for everyone on the ROI side.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and thank you. And you probably have a better knowledge of what CBT water is now than I do. I think it's something that we'll actually be able to get some data on this year. We're working through some appraisal work, so we'll actually be able to get real numbers on this that will be able to probably give us a better sense of putting a true ROI to these things, and we can follow up with the board later on in the year once we get that information.
All right. Looks
Thanks.
like it for the questions, Peter. So I think seeing no more. All right. Can I get a motion to recommend City Council approve by resolution Englewood's 2022 water efficiency plan?
I move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, and then we have no old business. So we'll just move down to staff's choice.
Okay, the first thing we have today is a bulk chemical purchases update. And if anybody's wondering, it's $29 million. That's the calculation from the last one. So so it's a lot of money. Bulk chemicals. So on bulk chemicals, last month we had talked about our bulk chemical purchase process. And in that, I had said that we were getting MAPO pricing. I was wrong. I thought we had resolved the MAPO pricing issue a year and a half ago, but it turns out we are part of MAPO. However, because we weren't a named agency when the bids went out, the solicitation went out in 2019 for MAPO pricing, because we weren't a named agencies, not all the providers have to honor MAPO pricing. That was a nuance I didn't understand. Our finance department let us know that. MAPO is actually the contract is solicited through Aurora. So they're the ones that lead the effort. They're going to reissue this spring a new round for MAPO pricing, and we are a listed agency, both us and South Platte Renew. So that should take care of that issue. So what does it all mean? We actually have one of our suppliers who supplies alum does honor the MAPO pricing for us. So there is no change in the cost for that chemical. The other supplier does not honor MAPO pricing for us. There's an incremental increase in the cost. And so for our caustic, we pay 4.5% higher. And for our bleach, we pay 1.9% higher. So what does that all mean annually from a cost to the utility perspective? It's actually not, it's not that significant. So caustic essentially costs us $2,300 more annually because we don't get that maple pricing, and bleach costs us $3,400 more annually because we don't get that maple pricing. So I wanted to clarify that with the board because I was under the wrong impression that we were receiving maple pricing. We are part of maple, but it turns out that the chemical providers do not have to honor it if they don't want to, and one of them does not. This should all resolve itself finally in the March-April timeframe when Aurora resolicits for this, and we are part of that solicitation. That's my update on that.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, the second thing is special payment arrangement policy, and Sarah is going to handle this one.
Okay, so Utilities is proposing a formalized payment arrangement policy for overdue water bills. And this is a part of an effort that the city attorney's office is currently working on to formalize a collections policy for the city that's been requested by city council. So tonight I'll walk through the elements of our proposed policy and get feedback from the board if there's any changes or other things that you all would like to see. So just for a little background on our current practice, a customer can call and request a special payment arrangement for an overdue bill or make a payment arrangement if they've had their water shut off for non-payment. And the billing staff will work with the customer to set up this payment arrangement so that it's manageable and restores their water service as soon as possible, but it's really not formalized. So we reinstated shutoffs for non-payment in February of 2022 after COVID had suspended shutoffs for a couple of years. And we had general guidelines that we set up for payment arrangements that allowed customers to make payments over several months based on their overdue balance. So we've incorporated that in our proposed policy here. And then to develop the rest of the policy, we reached out to several area utilities to see what they do. So like Denver, I think Thornton, others in the region. And of course, everybody does something a little bit different. So we incorporated elements of the others that seem to fit with Englewood's customers. So these elements include a signed payment arrangement agreement. So an example of this is shown on the screen. Just a way to define for the customer what the amount would be due each month based on their payment arrangement, and then has them acknowledge certain aspects such as staying current on recent charges, and then to acknowledge that they may be shut off if they also do not hold up the payment arrangement. So the arrangement for overdue amounts that we've set by the overdue balance is an equal payment for over 2 months for balances under $500, between $500 and $1,500. We looked at equal payments over 4 months, and then greater than $1,500 equal payments over 6 months. Since we've reinstated shutoffs from February last year, there really aren't balances that large. The majority of them are in that under $500 range. And then our final element to this policy is for 3 consecutive broken arrangements, we would then not allow a customer to be eligible to make payment arrangements for a 24-month period, and we would require payment of an overdue balance prior to turn on. So one of the reasons that we wanted to incorporate this particular element to the policy is that we've had a customer that since 2008 has made 56 separate payment arrangements and has broken 35 of them. This has cost countless hours from the billing staff and our utilities administration manager, as well as being elevated through me and up to Peter, to where he's also had to spend several hours addressing this issue. So we feel that with a clear, defined payment arrangement and these elements incorporated, make it defined for the customer as well as for our staff to mitigate issues like that immediately. So I'd like to open it up for any questions or feedback on this policy. Again, this will be rolled into something that the city attorney is putting together as a part of the city collections policy.
Any questions for Sarah? All right, Ty, go ahead.
Was the account that you referenced, was that residential or commercial?
It was a residential account, yes.
And the last time that I spoke with this customer, I said, you will not have the opportunity to engage in any future payment arrangements, given your pattern of breaking those payment arrangements. And so we've spent a lot of time with this customer, and there's a certain point in time we want to help our customers because we realize that people run into problems, but we found at least one that takes advantage of it.
Wow. Not seeing any further questions, and you don't need, Sarah, you don't need any specific action.
I don't. I just wanted to open the opportunity for feedback. So, so it sounds like this will work, and we'll move this forward.
It looks well structured to me.
Great.
All right. I don't think there's anything particular to mention on the look ahead schedule, right, Peter? Just there as an FYI. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I was talking on mute. Yeah, it's just a FYI for the board. You can see what's coming up.
Yep.
Those are our expected times when we bring them.
Very good. And anything from the board before we adjourn? Ty, go ahead.
Has there been any discussion about boards staying remote versus being pushed back in person? I'm not advocating for back in person. I'm just curious if that's come up at all.
It's been a while since we've talked about it.
Yeah. We've had it as a potential agenda item a little bit, but never made it. So no, I mean, you're free to, no specific discussions planned from this end, but Jenny, if you would like to open discussion, we certainly can. I personally would just suggest we not even, I don't want to entertain the idea too much until I know we're at least through the winter wave of stuff. But as we get to safer season, I think if people would like to do that, we could talk about that or a hybrid arrangement. Shall we punt till spring? Does that work, Ty?
Yeah, I was just trying to look ahead at my schedule, and I wasn't sure if, I was hoping it wouldn't happen within like 30 days notice, or that would be a challenge if we pivoted. Fully happy to stay remote. I have a young kid at home, so been sick for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I know I won't be advocating for in-person myself, but I'm open to the discussion. Very good. All right, we'll at least wait and have that till some other warmer time. Marjan and then Joe.
Just a quick reminder, a friendly reminder, Peter, you said you were going to send me a copy of that 2030 agenda that I could take a look at it. I just wanted to give you just a soft reminder.
Yep. You are correct. I will get that to you.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Yep.
I appreciate it. And I want to wish everybody Happy New Year. Yes.
Joe?
Yeah, I would like to have the discussion regarding in-person meetings. I mean, I think a hybrid option would certainly make sense, but I'm on a number of boards and commissions, and of course have regular city council meetings, and there's nothing unsafe about meeting in person. I think we should open that option up for people to, a number of people on this board who haven't even met each other in person. This has gone on for quite some time now, so anyway, if we want to put that off, that's fine, but I would certainly advocate for meeting in person. I think it's pretty normal thing to do.
I met Ty at Costco. That was an interesting one. Where, hey, I think we know each other. Sounds good. And Joe, I too would welcome it when maybe we again get that a little bit, but be nice to know what other boards have done and done successfully, if anyone's tried the hybrid option in that kind of arrangement.
Yeah, I've done our sustainability commission. We've been doing hybrid since we went back in person, well over a year ago, and it works quite well. I would prefer everybody be in person, but I understand it's convenient sometimes to have the option, and even on city council, if I've been a little bit sick and have attended virtually at times as well. So, but I do think there's, it makes sense to just go back in person at some point, or at least have the hybrid option. So I'll leave it at that.
Sounds good, Joe. Thank you. Jim, and then Peter.
Yeah, with our Parks and Recreation Commission meetings, we are hybrid, have been for probably, getting close to a year, if not a year. And it has worked out. There's typically times, unless we meet in a park or something like that, but if we're meeting in a conference room, the hybrid has been working out quite well.
Good, thank you. Peter?
I was just going to offer that at South Platte Renew, we had these same questions for our supervisory committee meeting, and we actually went to we don't have it's not easy to do a hybrid model. So what we actually went to was a more of a quarterly, where we do one meeting in person a quarter, and then the other two would be remote, virtual, and then so we're at least getting together in person 4 times a year while still meeting 12 times a year. So that's just another model that we've are utilizing.
Good. Everyone give that some thought, in the next meeting or two, and we can give everyone a chance to kind of weigh in what they're thinking and figure out what the board wants to do. I am not seeing any further questions. And so with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Happy New Year, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.